I am going to be careful with how I say this because I do not want it to turn into something bigger than what it actually is, but I also do not want to pretend I am not affected. My teammate turned against me, and even saying that feels strange because that is not how I see us. I see us as a unit. I see us as connected, and that is what makes this hard. From the outside, people probably assume everything inside a team is solid if the wins are there and the energy looks good. You see the high fives, you see the smiles, you see us talking in huddles. That is the image, and I understand why people believe that image, because that is what we show. There is a public version of me that a lot of people feel like they know. I'm confident, vocal, competitive, someone who does not back down. I have built that identity through how I play. I push hard, I expect a lot, I demand focus, and I know that can be intense at times. But everything I do on the court is about trying to win and trying to raise the level of the group. When you are in the spotlight, everything is amplified. If I speak up, it gets noticed. If I show frustration, it gets replayed. If I stay quiet, people start asking questions. That pressure does not just affect me, it affects how teammates see themselves too. Because when one person gets most of the attention, it can create feelings that are not always spoken out loud. I have always tried to handle that responsibly. I do not want to make anything about me. I want it to be about the team. But the reality is, when your name is constantly in headlines, it changes the dynamics whether you like it or not. Fans think they see everything because they see games, they see box scores, they see interviews, but they do not see how long a season feels inside a locker room. They do not see the conversations when things are tense. They do not see how roles and confidence shift over time. The expectations placed on me are high. I accept that. I expect a lot from myself, but sometimes those expectations spill into relationships. So if I have a big night, it is celebrated publicly. If I struggle, it is discussed publicly. That constant attention can create a pressure inside a team that is hard to describe. I have always believed that if something is wrong, you talk about it directly. That is how I was raised in the game. You confront issues, you fix them, you move on. But not everyone handles things that way. Some people process frustration differently. Some people hold things in. Lately, I started to feel a shift. It was not dramatic. It was small things. A tone that felt colder than usual. A conversation that stopped when I walked in. A look that lingered longer than it used to. Those are the kinds of things you notice when you are inside something every day. I told myself I might be overthinking it. I told myself that pressure can make you sensitive. But the feeling did not go away. It grew slowly. And when you are someone who values team chemistry deeply, feeling even a small crack in that foundation hits hard. What makes it more complicated is that I still care about this teammate. I respect their game. I respect the work they put in. This is not about hate or anger. It is about the realization that something shifted in a way I did not expect. The spotlight makes it harder because you cannot process these feelings privately. If there is tension, people will see it. If there is distance, it will be noticed. That adds another layer of pressure because you are not just managing the relationship, you are managing the perception of the relationship. I never imagined I would feel like someone on my own team was moving against me instead of with me. That thought alone made me question a lot about how I have been showing up and how I have been communicating. Because when you feel that shift, you do not just blame the other person. At least I do not. I start looking at the whole environment. I start asking what changed, what pressures are sitting on people, and whether something has been building under the surface for longer than I noticed. Team dynamics are complicated. Everyone wants to win, but everyone also wants to feel valued. Everyone wants a role that makes sense. Everyone wants trust. And when the season gets long, small frustrations can turn into patterns. If those patterns do not get addressed, they start showing up in little ways that feel personal. The thing that hurt was not just the feeling of distance. It was the feeling that something was being framed about me in a way that did not match reality. I started hearing that I was too much in certain moments, that I was controlling in certain situations, that I was making it about myself. None of those words were said to my face. That is what made it feel like someone was moving against me. If a teammate has an issue with me, I would rather they tell me directly. I can handle hard conversations. I have had them my whole life in basketball. But when you sense that frustration is being carried into side conversations instead of being brought to you, it creates mistrust. You start wondering what is being said when you are not in the room. There were moments in practice where I could feel it, and I would call something out the way I normally do, and instead of it being received as leadership, it felt like it was being taken as criticism. I would try to communicate, and the energy would go quiet, not the normal, focused quiet, a different kind of quiet. I do not want to pretend I am perfect. I am demanding. I am intense. I talk a lot. That is how I play. And I know that can be hard sometimes, but I also know I do it because I believe in what we can be. I do not do it to embarrass anyone. I do not do it to make myself look good. What started to really bother me was the lack of directness, because when things are not said out loud, they grow. People fill in gaps, assumptions get made, and in a team environment, assumptions can become separation quickly. There was also a moment where something that should have stayed internal did not. It was not a big scandal. It was not some wild story. It was a small team conversation that I expected to remain inside the group. Later, I got questions that felt too specific, like someone had shared the mood of the room with people outside. That is when I felt the pressure spike. When you feel like information is moving in ways you cannot track, you start protecting yourself. You start speaking less. You start choosing words carefully. You start keeping certain thoughts to yourself that you normally would share to help the group. That is not good for chemistry. It is not good for winning, but it is a natural response when trust feels shaky. The locker room became uncomfortable in a way I had not felt before. Not every day, not every moment, but enough that I noticed, enough that I started walking in and scanning the room, trying to read the energy before I spoke. That is not how a team should feel. I kept trying to do things the right way. I kept being supportive. I kept encouraging. I kept showing up early, staying late, trying to be consistent. But consistency does not fix everything. If there is tension that is not being addressed, and here's the hard part, when you are the person in the spotlight, it becomes easy for teammates to project things onto you. If they are frustrated with their own role, the spotlight can feel like the reason. If they feel overlooked, they might connect that feeling to you even if you are not the one making decisions. That is not fair, but it happens. I started to feel like I was being treated as a symbol instead of a teammate, and like my presence carried meanings that were not actually about me as a person. That is what it feels like when someone turns against you. It is not always open conflict. Sometimes it is a shift in how they interpret everything you do. I did not want to explode. I did not want to make it public. I did not want to create a situation where the team gets divided. So I stayed controlled. I kept it inside. But keeping it inside does not make it disappear. It just means you are carrying it while still trying to play at a high level. And keeping it inside does not make it disappear. It just means you are carrying it while still trying to play at a high level. And that is what I have been doing. Competing, leading, smiling when it makes sense, staying composed when it does not. But inside, I have been sorting through what this actually means. I had to decide whether I was going to let this situation change who I am as a player. It would have been easy to get quieter, to stop holding people accountable, to stop being vocal, so I would not risk being misunderstood, but that would not be authentic. That would be me shrinking to make things more comfortable. At the same time, I had to acknowledge that something real happened. When you feel like a teammate is moving against you instead of with you, it creates doubt, not just about them, about yourself. You start wondering if you missed signs, if you handled something wrong, if you could have communicated better. I did reflect on that. I asked myself if I have been too intense at times, and I asked myself if my urgency feels like pressure to someone else. I am willing to grow. I am willing to adjust, but growth requires honesty on both sides. It cannot just be one person absorbing everything quietly. What helped me the most was separating the situation from my identity. Just because someone feels threatened or frustrated does not mean I am wrong for being who I am. Just because someone chooses to handle tension indirectly does not mean I have to abandon directness. I also realized that not every teammate will connect with you in the same way. Some relationships are effortless, others require more work. That does not mean you cannot win together. It just means you need clearer communication. I am not angry. I am disappointed. There is a difference. Anger makes you react. Disappointment makes you think. I have been thinking a lot about how to lead without overwhelming, about how to communicate without assuming everyone processes things the same way I do. The spotlight adds complexity. If there is visible tension, it becomes a story. If there is distance on the bench, it becomes a clip. That pressure makes it tempting to ignore